Hello! The module I chose to discuss this week is the Comparing Universal Backwards Design, the Inquiry Design Model, and Problem-Based Learning module. From the beginning of my executive branch unit, I knew what certain things I wanted my students to walk away knowing about the executive branch. By using backwards design, I realized I wanted students to know about presidential powers, the vice president, the cabinet, and impeachment. By knowing this, I was able to break down the units into specific lessons. I knew that at the end of the unit, I'll assign part of their final project. For their midterm, students had to create a country including governmental parts needed for a country to sufficiently run. Students needed to develop a constitution, a type of government, and an election system for their midterm. They also had to make a flag, name their country, and name the population. For the remainder of the semester, I'll assign different aspects of the final project as we complete a unit. For example, at the end of this unit, I will assign an excerpt of their final project dealing with the executive branch of their country, and then I know that next I'll teach the legislative and judicial branches, and after those segments, I will want to assign those parts of the final project. This country project also falls into problem-based learning. I believe that projects are a much better way of judging students' progress than tests. Tests are essential as well, and I have given 3 quizzes so far, but I can see more of the students in their projects. Assigning creative projects really allows students' personalities to shine and for them to be successful. In each midterm, students were so creative. I was shocked at how many cool countries they came up with. One group of students had overlapping countries based on the sun, and their histories were intertwined, and they overtook one another. Another did a country based on March Madness. Another did one based on Frozen and Black Panther. Another student did a whole dog-paced country. So I was really impressed with what they came up with. Students chose different types of democracies, theocracies, monarchies, dictatorships, and oligarchies to explain their country. Also, most students chose to do a popular vote instead of an electoral college vote in their country. Assigning this project is like giving students a problem to solve. They can create any type of country they want, but they need to be able to prove that it can be successful. They need to solve what their constitution will look like, what their government structure will look like, and what their election will look like. One video in the module called Establishing Real-World Connections and Projects is so important when assigning projects. I really want these students to know what government is and why it's important in their everyday lives, especially outside of school. Many of them are already 18, and the rest of them will be 18 pretty soon, and they can already start using their civic duty. My students will have graduated from high school in a month and will be like real citizens and need to understand the government and need to understand what their civic duty is. The first key the video says in problem-based learning is establishing real-world connections and projects. Even though in their midterm students made up a country, so it's not super real world, they had to think about real governments to connect their own country to. Like they took ideas from other governments to create their own. In their campaign projects, students had to pretend like they were running a real campaign for the President of the United States. In my First Amendment unit, students had to connect the freedoms in the First Amendment to their own lives. Next week we are going to talk about student rights, and one of the cases involves a student wearing Confederate flag paraphernalia to school, which is very similar to a case that actually happened at this school. Another tip in the video is to offer meaningful learning, which I think is an integral part of the government. Students need to know how their government works, and these projects help them understand that. Using projects like this in regards to problem-based learning is a great way to see students' growth, ideas, and creativity on an assignment. I also like to focus a lot of my lessons on inquiry. My CT said at the beginning of the semester that she doesn't like to do notes and stand at the board and talk at the students. Instead, she likes it if they find the information themselves. She said this is better for seniors who will just check out and don't really know what's going on if they aren't the ones who are actually doing the work. For the past unit on the executive branch, I had students do a lot of research. They had to research and present on a recent president. They had to research and make a poster about one impeached president. They had to completely come up with their own country and government. My first block students had to do a lot of research regarding the First Amendment freedoms. When we did our freedom of speech debate, students had to talk with one another and research previous court cases to come up with good talking points to defend their side of the argument. When we learned about more freedoms like freedom of assembly and petition, I had students come up with their own issue that they think could warrant a protest or a rally. and they had to make a poster inviting people to this rally, and then they also had to write a letter inviting a local representative to the rally and sign it at the bottom, so it was like petition. So a lot of students did like gun rights. One group did a poster for the West Virginia teacher strike. One group did a Save the Ducks event, which was more of an environmental and animal rights group. So students had to make these posters to inform the public about the event and then write a letter of petition to a local representative. I think inquiry is so crucial in the classroom, and it is especially important with older students. Thanks for watching!